Him sounding a lot more like John Kerry than the John McCain with whom we worked and for whom we campaigned so many years. No, don't misunderstand. My opponent has served a long time. And early on, and for a long time, he listened to us. But the years have passed, and the listening has given way to lecturing. And instead of pursuing sound public policy, we instead have seen ill-advised posturing of convenience to satisfy the Washington elites rather than to represent Arizonans. So after 28 years in Washington, the last 24 in the United States Senate, it's time to say to our old friend John, thank you for your service. Welcome home. We are going to instead, we will send a consistent conservative to the United States Senate, not merely a convenient conservative. And one other note, actually two other notes. Miss Mary is here and I'm picking up the mental telepathy. She's saying, honey, don't forget to remind everybody that our friend Sheriff Joe Arpaio has endorsed your candidacy for the U.S. Senate. Mary, thank you for sending those signals. But also, in the interest of time, because we want to make this more of a dialogue, just this closing note. Mary and I and the kids talked about this as a family. And I'm glad the videotapes are running, and I'm glad we have reporters in the room, because this is my solemn commitment to you. Should you honor me with service in the United States Senate, and grant me the opportunity to serve 2 successive terms, then that's enough. I will serve 12 years and then step aside and make way for another citizen, hopefully another conservative, to serve. Because, quite frankly, we see the problems when someone tries to cling to a position for too long. Thank you very much. Let's open it up for questions. Thank you all very much. Who's got a question? Let me go right here in the back. The gentleman standing up. Yes, sir.
You brought up the Constitution. When it was first brought up, I believe the governor of Virginia rejected it because it didn't pass something called the Bill of Rights. Wasn't concerned the other thing. If you had, hypothetically, a choice to remove one of those Bill of Rights and repeal it, which one would that be?
To ask me about repealing any aspect of the Bill of Rights would be like asking, I think, any living being to deprive itself of oxygen.
Well, there's ones that are better than others. I'm thinking of one particular, but...
Well, why don't you share with us your concerns?
What I'm thinking of is the 17th Amendment.
Well, no, that's not the Bill of Rights, sir. The Bill of Rights is the first 10 amendments to the Constitution. Let's get the out. Now, there are two. Now I see you're on the track. Let me go here. There are 2 amendments that were ratified early in the 20th century that profoundly changed life in our republic. The first was the 16th Amendment that allowed for the direct taxation of personal income. And by the way, I believe we should go to an entirely different system of taxation. I embrace the fair tax. But number 2, this is what you're getting to, sir. The 17th Amendment changed the way in which senators were elected in our constitutional republic. The 17th Amendment allowed the election of senators by popular vote. Now, what the gentleman raises here is a legitimate concern, because the amendment that did complete the Bill of Rights, the 10th Amendment, that said all powers not expressly within this Constitution are reserved for the states, or more exclusively the people. The 10th Amendment lost some of its oomph from the Bill of Rights when we took the election of senators out of the hands of state legislators in the respective state legislatures. Now, I've got to tell you, to implement the fair tax, we are going to have to repeal the 16th Amendment. And since I'm only going to serve 2 terms in the U.S. Senate, if you allow me to, I have no qualms at all in the fullness of time. It doesn't happen with a snap of the fingers, but to return to our republic, I would welcome the election of senators by legislators in the respective state legislatures to return to our notion of a constitutional republic. I'll give you a reason why. When we first got to Washington, the first majority the Republicans had held in my lifetime, you honored me with election to Congress when I was age 36. And early on, we not only went through the provisions of the contract with America, took 10 votes, not everything passed, but still we had a pretty good record. But one of the things we moved forward on was a balanced budget amendment. And several Democrat senators who had pledged fealty to a balanced budget amendment suddenly switched. One in particular that made us lose the margin we needed for victory. Bob Torricelli, no, I beg your pardon, because Bob was still with me in the House, wasn't he? At any rate, I'm trying to remember exactly who switched. See, this is what happens. It's so long, sometimes your memory starts to go on you, but the larger point is this. As Eisenhower used to say, I don't want to engage in personalities. Let me give you the broader truth. The senators thought they could renege on that promise, mindful that they still had like 5.5 years to have other issues come up so they could play it off with the electorate. Again, if you want to really reclaim the prerogatives of the states, repealing the 17th Amendment and returning to the original intent of the founders would be a good way to do that. Now, let me hasten to add, lest anyone recording this or here visiting as a journalist misunderstands, this is not to cut off or extinguish popular sentiment. But our founders made it clear that in our bicameral legislature, it was the House that would be small d Democratic. In fact, to this day, if there is a vacancy in the United States House of Representatives, either through death or resignation, there is a special election. No one sets foot on the House floor without being elected to the House. And that's well and good. And our founders designed that to be the people's house and the Senate to be a small r Republican institution. What do I mean by that? Again, let's return to our friend Benjamin Franklin, who had wonderful definitional analogies. Maybe you've heard him. You remember what Dr. Franklin, how he described a democracy? Benjamin Franklin wrote, a democracy is 2 wolves and a lamb voting on what's for dinner. A republic is a well-armed lamb contesting the vote. And again, with all due respect to my friends who believe passionately in the Second Amendment, again, I think in this instance, Franklin was talking about being armed with an intellect and the knowledge of rights. And what distinguishes a republic is that, yes, quite often, the majority will rule or will carry the day, but within a republic, there are certain points where there is definite leverage on the part of the minority to ensure that all rights and all opinions are respected. And that is the difference. And from our earliest days, whether it's, I guess it was Washington who offered the analogy, that the House would be like scalding hot coffee, and the Senate would be the saucer into which the coffee was poured for the passions to cool and for deliberation to take place. The other thing important about the United States Senate, and earlier, a dear lady stopped me, remember, she said, J.D., I can't believe you want to go back there. And thanks for your prayers, by the way. I think she's also praying for my sanity above everything else. But in the United States Senate, because it is a small r Republican institution, even when the Democrats have control, anyone among the 100 can start to talk. And as you see, I have no